Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in the world of UK FinTech, focusing on a really remarkable company, the digital bank Monzo.
And this isn't, just a simple story about a successful app.
No, not at all. It's really a masterclass in how a disruptive startup tries to become a robust, regulated, and, well, ultimately profitable financial institution.
A very difficult transition.
So our mission today is to move past all the early hype, past that famous Coral card, and really extract the deep strategic lessons from Monzo's entire journey.
Right.
We need to understand the intense financial and regulatory challenges that face all scaling fintechs globally when they try to become real banks.
And Monzo is, I would argue, one of the most important case studies in the global fintech landscape, precisely because of that struggle.
That tension.
That tension, exactly.
Yeah.
They had to strike an incredibly difficult balance. How do you maintain a fiercely loyal, startup-minded customer base,
Yeah.
while at the same time achieving the operational maturity and, crucially, the sustainable profitability that investors and regulators demand?
That's the core of the story. So let's start at the beginning, around 2015. Monzo was founded by former bank employees Tom Blomfield, Jonas Templestein, Paul Rippin.
So these weren't outsiders. They knew the system from the inside.
And they knew it was slow, opaque, and just utterly frustrating for the average person.
They realized that the future wasn't just about, a slightly better website for your bank. It was about tearing up the blueprint completely,
Their whole vision was revolutionary. It was a bank that lives entirely on your smartphone.
offering real-time visibility, real-time control. They believed that transparency and customer centricity weren't just marketing buzzwords. They were the foundational technology.
And this brings us right into our first part, the cult of Coral. Their launch strategy was, you could argue, genius.
It really was.
Monzo didn't wait to get a full banking license, which is a years-long, expensive, just a bureaucratic nightmare. Instead, in 2016, they launched this bright, instantly recognizable, coral-colored prepaid debit card.
And that decision was, from a business strategy perspective, fundamentally brilliant.
Why so brilliant?
Well, the prepaid card acted as a high-visibility beta phase. It let them onboard hundreds of thousands of users, gather all this crucial data on spending habits,
And perfect the app's user experience.
and perfect the app exactly, all while quietly working in the background to get that full banking license.
And the cultural impact was, it was immediate. This prepaid card created a genuinely cult-like following.
Oh, yeah.
If you were around the UK fintech scene back then, you remember it, people standing in long queues at pop-up events just to get one of these
And
cards.
social media was just flooded with photos of it. The Coral card was like a badge of honor.
Monzo meetups became a real cultural moment.
What's so fascinating is how they leveraged that hype into a tangible business advantage.
How so?
Their early customer acquisition strategy, it used a waiting list. That immediately created this massive sense of FOMO, fear of missing out.
Everybody wanted in.
Everyone. And they actively built a community forum where users felt like their opinions were actually shaping the product. And then they published these radical transparency reports,
Which positioned them as the anti-bank.
the complete anti-bank. And all of that translates into a financial moat. It dramatically reduces your customer acquisition cost, your CAC.
Because you don't have to spend a fortune on marketing.
Exactly. When you have organic hype and a waiting list, you don't need expensive TV ads like the traditional banks. This loyalty became a structural advantage. It turned the Coral card into a highly efficient machine for growth.
And that foundation of trust became absolutely critical when we move into part two, the regulatory leap.
A huge moment.
In April 2017, Monzo gets its full UK banking license. This is the moment they gain stability, the ability to hold full deposits, offer overdrafts.
And finally access those real sustainable revenue paths.
But this ushered in a new and much, much more difficult reality.
Yes. Running a regulated bank is not like running a software company. It's more like operating a utility, or sometimes like a nuclear power plant.
The compliance costs are non-negotiable and just massive.
And obtaining that license meant accepting this intense responsibility to two main bodies, the Prudential Regulation Authority, the PRA.
They deal with capital instability.
Right. And the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, which deals with customer protection and conduct.
But they didn't hit the brakes. The hyper-growth phase from 2017 to 2020 was extraordinary.
Oh, it was an explosion. They passed 1 million users in their first full year as a licensed bank.
And that quick option was driven by some really clear, tangible innovations that back then the big high street banks just couldn't offer.
Right, let's break those down.
Okay, so 4 key innovations. First, the instant spending notifications and the category breakdown.
That gave customers this unprecedented real-time visibility into their own finances. It revolutionized budgeting for a lot of people.
Second, fee-free card use abroad. That was a
Yeah.
huge draw.
A massive draw, particularly for that traveling younger demographic.
Mm.
And it quickly became a significant early income source through what's called interchange revenue.
Okay, hold on. For listeners who might not be deep in the finance jargon, what exactly is interchange revenue?
Think of it simply. It's the small fee, usually a tiny percentage, that the merchant pays to the card issuer, in this case Monzo Fin, every single time you tap your card.
Got it.
So because Monzo's customers were young and used their cards constantly, especially while traveling, those tiny fees added up to high-margin revenue for Monzo without charging the customer directly.
Right. Okay, so the third innovation was that community-powered approach, letting customers vote on new features.
Made people feel invested.
And fourth, just the app itself, the clarity, the design, the simplicity. It felt like software, not like a clunky old bank.
But here's the critical paradox, what we can call the FinTech trap.
Okay.
Despite all this enormous customer success and brand loyalty, Monzo was facing consistent, deep operating losses every single year from 2015 to 2020 because they were spending so heavily on compliance, on technology, on marketing, on 2047 customer support.
So they were earning very low revenue per customer, a low ARPU, or average revenue per user, while facing these massive fixed costs of being a regulated bank.
Precisely. Hyper-growth in that scenario was actually a liability.
How is growth a liability?
Because every time they onboarded a new customer, they had to allocate capital and compliance resources to them. So if the revenue from that customer's interchange fees didn't cover the cost of maintaining the account,
Growth just makes you lose money faster.
it just exacerbates the burn rate. They had built this beloved product with a fundamentally flawed early revenue structure.
And that takes us directly into part 3, the Valley of Challenges, a critical turning point around 2020 where the whole system almost broke.
The pressures were just immense. They were coming from every possible direction. First, there was the human cost.
Co-founder Tom Blomfield resigned.
Yes, citing profound burnout from the relentless demands of running a regulated bank. And that right there is a powerful lesson about the psychological toll of scaling under that kind of pressure.
And at the same time, they were facing intense regulatory scrutiny.
Specifically related to financial crime controls,
Yeah.
anti-money laundering procedures. The regulators, as we said, they care about risk, not popularity.
So that scrutiny didn't just increase their costs, it actually delayed important product rollouts.
It did.
But wait, if the regulators were challenging their financial crime controls, didn't that risk undermining all the trust they'd built? You know, the cult of coral trust? How did they manage that PR?
It was a huge PR tightrope walk. I think Monzo's legacy of transparency actually helped them here, but it was still incredibly difficult.
They had to admit they had a problem.
They had to publicly admit that their controls, which were built for a startup, were insufficient for a bank with millions of users. They committed publicly to investing heavily to fix it, which, while expensive, kind of reinforced their image as a bank that at least tries to do things properly.
And then the third factor hit, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Which just destroyed a major piece of their early income. Remember that high-margin interchange revenue from fee-free card use abroad?
Travel stopped.
Travel stopped. International spending just plummeted. That unstable revenue stream vanished, it felt like almost overnight. And it revealed the fragility of their entire early business model.
It was so severe that Monzo had to publicly acknowledge something very serious in their annual report.
Yes, the phrase material uncertainty about its ability to continue as a going concern.
Which is finance speak for a massive alarm bell.
It is. They had to tell the public and the market that there was a serious risk they might, in plain terms, run out of cash and go bust if they couldn't drastically change their financial trajectory.
A true stress test.
The ultimate stress test for the whole organization.
And framing that choice is the key educational moment here for anyone listening. Monzo had to decide, do we continue as an innovative but loss-making disruptor, or do we fundamentally rebuild the financial model from the inside out?
And commit to becoming a sustainable, fully functional bank. They chose sustainability.
Which leads us into part 4, strategic reinvention, starting around 2021.
And this wasn't just a business decision. It was a fundamental cultural shift. They had to move from that Silicon Valley ethos of build fast, break things.
To build fast, but with institutional-grade controls.
Exactly. And that cultural shift powered their revenue diversification strategy. They recognized the reliance on interchange fees was just too unstable. They had to boost that average revenue per user drastically.
So they systematically introduced new high-margin products.
Products designed to strengthen their financial sustainability without, and this is key, without compromising that famous user experience. The goal was to turn free users into paying subscribers or responsible borrowers,
So we saw the launch of subscription products like Monzo Plus and Monzo Premium.
offering things like advanced budgeting, credit scores, other perks for a monthly fee.
And crucially, they also launched Monzo Flex, a regulated buy now, pay later product.
And the word regulated there is so significant, it cannot be overstated. While being regulated meant higher costs, it offered far greater consumer protection and trust.
It helped them avoid the ethical and regulatory headaches that plagued so many unregulated BNPL competitors.
Right, it positioned Flex as a sustainable, differentiated product.
So it sounds like they shifted from passively earning these tiny fees on transactions to actively building lending and subscription relationships.
Precisely. They started acting like a true bank, lending money and offering premium services, but they just packaged it all in a superior user experience.
Then at the same time, they were achieving operational maturity.
Overhauling that critical compliance infrastructure, the risk controls, the internal governance, to finally address those earlier regulatory concerns.
And the results by 2024, I mean, they signal a massive turnaround.
Absolutely. Monzo now has over 9 million customers. It still maintains one of the highest Net Promoter Scores and strongest brand loyalties in the entire UK sector.
So the cult of Coral is still strong.
It's still strong. But most importantly, they are closing that financial gap. They've moved significantly closer to profitability, they're reducing losses, and they're seeing dramatic revenue increases specifically from those new diversified streams.
Flex, business banking, subscriptions.
All of it. And this successful pivot secured hundreds of millions in new investment, which signals long-term confidence. They achieved the rare feat of scaling, surviving that regulatory hurdle, and finding a path to self-sufficiency.
Okay, let's connect this whole journey back to you, the listener. What are the essential strategic lessons here for anyone interested in scaling a high-growth company, especially in a regulated field like FinTech? What's the blueprint?
The Monzo story gives us 5 core, hard-won lessons that founders really need to internalize.
Okay, lesson 1.
Customer experience is a powerful competitive advantage. That's the Coral Card legacy. But it is insufficient without a sustainable, scalable business model underneath it.
Your products can be loved by millions and still fail.
Exactly. Lesson 2. A banking license unlocks critical revenue opportunities, but it instantly introduces these intense regulatory obligations, and that requires massive, non-negotiable, upfront investment in compliance and risk management.
You cannot defer the cost of being safe.
You can't. Lesson 3 is about stability. FinTech companies have to diversify revenue early. The Monzo crisis showed that over-reliance on a single, unstable income source like interchange is just too risky when external shocks, like a pandemic, hit.
Right, lesson 4.
Lesson 4 reminds us that while radical, transparent communication builds immense trust, that transparency has to be paired with operational execution to maintain credibility when things inevitably go wrong.
Especially with something as serious as financial crime controls.
Especially then. And finally, lesson 5. Culture matters, but it has to evolve. Monzo's early success was powered by this passionate community engagement.
But its later resilience, its survival, was powered by operational discipline, institutional controls, and strong, stable leadership committed to the boring work of regulatory compliance.
Right. Monzo really stands as a rare example of a fintech that successfully transitioned from a disruptive startup, a pure tech company, to a maturing financial institution without losing its identity.
It's that combination of mass customer adoption and now a proven path towards profitability.
Proving that the two can coexist. It's not easy, but it can be done.
And the Monzo story is still being written. They have ambitions for international expansion, deeper lending, integrating personalized tools using AI. But even now, its journey offers a really clear blueprint for startups. Customer-first design builds powerful brands.
But it also offers a very clear warning.
Which is that in financial services, growth without structural sustainability is just inherently fragile.
It's built on sand.
Success isn't just about launching revolutionary technology or, having the coolest app. It's about solving real problems, earning trust, managing systemic risk, and continuous, sometimes very painful adaptation.
And this deep dive really shows that the hardest, most necessary work only starts after you get all the customers.
We'll leave you with that thought to mull over.